All right, let's talk about goals. I mean, they're everywhere, right? They're basically the engine of the modern workplace. Something like 95% of us work in companies that are driven by them. They define what we do, how we measure success. They pretty much shape our entire careers. But here's the thing we almost never stop to ask. Are the goals we're setting actually helping us? Is this playbook we've been using for, like, decades really pushing us to win, or could it be the very thing that's holding us back? To get to the bottom of that, we have to start with the reigning champ of goal setting. You know the one I'm talking about. We've all been taught it. Yep, SMART goals. For what feels like forever, this was the absolute gold standard. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. It sounds so solid, so logical. And hey, for a long time it worked. But the world's changed, and in the crazy fast pace of today, some of those solid foundations are starting to show some serious cracks. And what's so fascinating is how SMART's biggest strengths are actually its fatal flaws. You know, take achievable and realistic. Sounds totally sensible, right? But what does it actually do? It encourages us to play it safe, to sandbag. Because let's be real, if your bonus is on the line, why would you risk missing some crazy ambitious target when you can guarantee hitting an easy one? And just like that, you've got a culture of lowballing. And when everyone sets these safe goals in private, you get these information silos that totally kill the agility a company needs to survive today. So if the old SMART playbook is out of date, what's next? Well, some really forward-thinking companies, we're talking Google, AB InBev, they started playing with a totally different system, one that's built for the chaotic, unpredictable world we actually live in now. And this slide just lays out the shift in thinking perfectly. You can see it right there. Achievable gets replaced with ambitious. Private goals become transparent. And that dreaded annual review, that gets tossed for frequent discussion. It's basically like upgrading from a dusty old rulebook to a live dynamic GPS. And this new framework, it's called FAST. It stands for frequently discussed, ambitious, specific, and transparent. And these 4 ideas, they're the pillars for building a company that's truly aligned, coordinated, and can pivot on a dime. So let's really break these 4 principles down and see what makes this FAST framework actually tick. First up, we've got F for frequently discussed. Now, this sounds simple, but it's a huge deal. No more setting goals in January and then forgetting about them until December. With FAST, goals are a living, breathing part of the conversation every single week. They guide your check-ins, they decide where resources go. The goal is no longer some document filed away somewhere. It's the compass your team uses every single day. And that's why the sharpest companies out there are already setting goals every quarter, not every year. Next up, A for ambitious. And this one is a direct challenge to that old SMART idea of being achievable and realistic. Fast goals are meant to be a stretch. They're supposed to be hard enough that they shove you right out of your comfort zone, forcing you to find breakthrough ideas, not just little safe improvements. But here's the catch. You can't just set ambitious goals if your company's culture punishes people for trying. And this data is, well, it's pretty damning. In a huge survey of over 8,000 managers, trying to hit ambitious goals was ranked near the absolute bottom for things that get you a promotion. And the number one factor? Just hitting your targets. The message couldn't be clearer. Most companies are actually set up to reward playing it safe. If you really want people to shoot for the moon, you can't punish them for landing among the stars. You know, Marcel Tella, one of the guys behind the incredible growth of AB InBev, he absolutely nailed it. He said his biggest challenge was finding that sweet spot, setting targets that are, in his own words, almost impossible, but not impossible. That's it. That's the magic right there. It's that tension that creates breakthroughs. Okay, on to S for specific. Now, I know what you're thinking. SMART has a specific too, but there's a really key difference here. In FAST, being specific isn't just about slapping a number on something. It's about taking that big, ambitious vision and breaking it down into super concrete metrics and clear milestones. It forces you to define exactly what done really looks like. And the result of that clarity? It's insane. Research shows it can boost an average team's performance all the way up into the 80th percentile, just from being clear. And that brings us to our last letter, T for transparent. And honestly, this might be the biggest game changer of them all. In a fast system, your goals aren't a secret handshake between you and your boss anymore. They're public, for everyone to see. And you might think people would hate that, but the data tells a completely different story. On platforms like Betterworks, over 90% of people choose to make their goals public. It turns out people really want that context. So what actually happens when you make everything transparent? Well, check out this chart. It's wild. It shows that in big companies, people check on the goals of other teams
more than twice a week. That's way more often than they even check on their own team's goals. And think about why that is. It's because it's self-service alignment. It lets smart people coordinate with each other without having to schedule yet another meeting. Silos just naturally start to crumble when everyone can see how their work fits into the bigger picture.
Okay, so we've taken the old SMART model apart and we've put together this new FAST framework. So let's zoom out and look at what this really means in practice. I love this mountain climbing metaphor because it's just perfect. That ambitious goal, that's the summit. It's that clear, inspiring, maybe even slightly scary peak on the horizon that pulls everyone in the same direction. But just pointing at a mountain isn't a plan to climb it, right? That's where the other three principles come in. Frequently discussed, specific, and transparent. That's your map, your gear, and the constant radio chatter that makes the climb actually possible. FAST isn't just about setting a destination, it's about equipping the team for the entire journey. So, what's the real takeaway here for you and your company? Look, adopting FAST isn't just about learning a new acronym. It's about rewiring your entire culture. It's about creating genuine alignment, pushing for real innovation instead of just tiny improvements, and getting people way more engaged because they can finally see how their work actually matters. You get an organization that can move faster and has a lot less of that political sandbagging that just thrives in the dark. So just for a second, think about your own workplace through this FAST lens. Are your goals part of a living conversation, or are they just some once-a-year ceremony? Does your company's culture reward people for taking big swings, or just for checking boxes? Is there a transparent map for everyone to see, or is everything locked away in different silos? Just be honest with yourself. How does your organization really stack up? And all of this really leads to one last big question. For decades, the advice has always been, be realistic. But in a world that changes by the minute, maybe realistic is just another word for too slow. Maybe what we really need is to be ambitious. So the question I want to leave you with is this. Is it finally time for your team to stop being so smart and start moving fast?